I grew up loving tables. Dining room tables and kitchen tables, tables on the patio, and tables that were created on the grass for picnics. I grew up loving family dinners and dinners with friends and dinners with aunts and uncles and grandmothers and cousins and dinners with people we did not yet know. People my mother or my father had just met and invited at the last minute. My house as a child was the gathering place, and my mother always insisted that everyone had to be seated at one table. Each time there was a big gathering, we moved a lot of furniture so that the tables could be added to the tables. It turns out all of that was amazing training for my future life. I move a lot of tables around here. I learned early on how to set a table and how to make certain everyone had a place. The theologian Diana Butler Bass is insistent that the story of Holy Week begins and ends at a table where all of the characters of this story share two meals that are life-changing. The season of Lent begins with Ash Wednesday and ends with the sacred Triduum. The Triduum includes Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. Each year on Holy Thursday in this place, we remember what has been known as the Last Supper. We are told it was the last time Jesus shared a meal with his closest followers. So each year, we celebrate that Thursday meal with a simple supper in Chateau Chapel. We begin those dinners by remembering the love of Jesus, a love that was not just for some people, but a love for all people. These dinners in Chateau Chapel are beautiful dinners, but they are not quiet, somber dinners. And even though it is only water and coffee that is offered to drink, the joyous atmosphere of those suppers are palpable. The friends of Jesus at that first Thursday dinner were celebrating the Passover in their tradition. They were gathered with friends and family at a big, busy, bustling holiday meal. When you picture this holiday meal, do not think of the 12 men from Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece that most of us have only seen in pictures. Think instead of the very best party you have ever been to. Do you have that in your mind? The importance of the day when they shared this meal was centered around the freedom their ancestors had won, the freedom from captivity. Many of the people gathered that night were filled with hope that perhaps this was the year they would finally be freed from the oppression of the Roman occupiers. The Roman occupiers, fueled by cruelty, were constantly dismantling their lives as well as the larger world. Yet in the midst of that mess, the friends of Jesus still remembered how much Jesus loved gathering around tables with friends. The Gospels are filled with stories of the many meals that occurred around those tables throughout the time of Jesus. And all those stories are about inviting people who did not belong to eat with them. People who were tax collectors, people outside of their faith, people who were poor, and people who were very rich but very poor in spirit. Jesus often invited more people than were expected, so the tables were always crowded. And apparently, Jesus never gave any thought to who would be seated next to whom, or the problems they might cause. They were a little rowdy at times. You probably have never been to a rowdy dinner party. Undoubtedly, Jesus made his closest friends roll their eyes over his lax ideas about dinner parties. But because Jesus believed in a table where everyone belonged, those followers eventually began distributing food to those who had none. They eventually began inviting people to come and share meals with them, no matter who they were. And they began on some level to understand that these tables where food and conversation were shared were the lifeblood of Jesus. While Holy Thursday can often feel like the beginning of the end, what if it was not the end, but only the first part of a story that will never end? What if this story has an understory that has the capacity to change everything? What if this story will change history? The story begins with the belief that each one of us has been created in the image of God, and that image is very good. That image is who we truly are. Imagine for a moment what a difference it would make in our world if we all believed we were born with an original blessing. And rather than seeing humanity as sinful or fallen, what if we could come to understand that because we are made in the image of the divine, it presumes we are inherently divine, and we are an extension of the love of God. Imagine that understanding affecting your life and the lives of people all around. At this stage of my life, I am realizing how much our lives depend on the stories we believe about God and about humanity, consciously or unconsciously. Granted, we will probably never know in this life whether or not Jesus physically rose from the dead. We have no way of knowing. All we have are the reports of those writers who wrote their stories decades after Jesus was crucified. All we have are the stories of those followers. If you've never read them, this would be a good week to try. Only God knows what they actually believed. Their own eyes had witnessed Jesus' brutal execution, and they had also experienced and would experience the Spirit of Jesus with them, both on the third day and on the days that followed. So it seems they did believe this incredible story of love. A love that triumphed over violence and death, a love that believed in feeding and caring and loving more than it cared about who was right and who was wrong. When we speak and sing the poetic words of faith on Easter Sunday, we do so celebrating and conveying the truth of the story, the truth that reminds us of the great gift that God has given us through the original blessing, when each and every one of us are born. The life, death, and life from death of Jesus we remember on Holy Thursday, on Good Friday, and on Easter Sunday is what allows us to celebrate how much Jesus loved their friends and how when Jesus died, that love did not fail. This love of Jesus now reminds us to follow the way of their life by being radically engaged with the injustice of the powers that be. The powers that still in so many places want to subdue and create people who are dependent on their fears of religion for salvation. The good news of this day and every day is that we are made in the image of God, and that image is very good. The good news of this day and every day is that we are blessed by God, not by what we have or how much we make, but by the ability and strength of our hearts. And that ability and strength gives us the responsibility to stand with all those who are oppressed, not simply to give them charity, but to respect them as equal partners and help them to find justice. The future of all our lives depend on the tables we will set for those who are here now and those who will come after us. In these coming moments, we are invited to let the music of this day, which has been so lovingly prepared, speak to our hearts, our minds, and our bodies, as we are reminded how very much we are loved. And then we will gather at this table and share this holy meal together. May it be so. May it be so for all of us.